Hi everyone, this is Lord coming at you from the break zone with another deck tech video. This one going over the Mono Earth deck that was piloted by Chogyoji over at the Kanto Meijin-Sen in Yokohama over the weekend. So I reached out to Pedro from Band Fancy Corner so that I would be able to get that player's name because I cannot read kanji, the Japanese characters, and I did want to give proper credit to the deck builder and the pilot. So to give you a little recap of that tournament, 67 participants, 7 rounds of Swiss, and into a Top Gun best of 3 that was, I believe, 17 players. And this deck made it all the way to the finals, was second place in the end. And from what Pedro has told me, this deck has only lost to the eventual winner of that tournament. So there's a lot of Opus 7 influence in this deck. And just to remind everyone, Jesper and Thaumaturge will be banned on December 1st, but for this event, as well as for Worlds this coming weekend, the cards will still be tournament legal, and so this deck is well positioned to take that deck on those two cards specifically. And let's go over some of the cards that make this deck so great. All right, we're going to start off with Galdes. The name of the deck is Galdes, so why not? This card is definitely overcurved. We're talking about 3-cost 8Ks, so a lot of people are playtesting different things, and I haven't seen too many people actually playtest Galdes. But it's a really interesting card with some effects that come into play when he leaves the field. So whether you use him more defensively if you're playing against something like Turbo Discard, or more aggressively when you play against other decks, the effects really can come in and give your opponent a hard time. As Galdes is one of the few cards that's not in fire that can deal with 5,000 power forwards on its own without having to actually just attack or block them. So if your opponent says, for example, has 2 or 3 Thaumaturges in their opening hand, a way to do a triple discard first turn with a Jesper or something like that, and after that eventually play out a Sid Alstein taking out your Galdes. Galdes on the way out, when he is put from the field into the break zone, would be able to reduce a forward by 5,000 power, which is quite a relevant number, as Thaumaturge gets to be 5,000 power, which is a bit of a problem for most decks. So Galdes can be used in that case, when you figure out who's the beatdown, whether your opponent, such as Turbo Discard, is the beatdown, and you need to stabilize to be able to go into your endgame, or if you're playing against decks that try to get a little bit bigger than you, this deck can get quite large. And Galdes is one of the keys, whether you want to be a little more defensive or offensive, as you have 3 copies of them, and you can only have, obviously, one of them on the field at a time. Galdes looks to be one of those forwards that you just go smashing in, or you use to really put up a big wall for cheap against your opponent. Okay. Also, the fact that you can force your opponent to discard a card at random from their hand is reminiscent of Nidhogg, and we saw that that ability is quite relevant. As obviously, it would be better if you were able to pick out the card, look at your opponent's hand and pick out a card, but to be able to force your opponent to discard a card at random is still better than just having them discard a card of their choice. Okay. Next up, we've got Shadow Lord. Also an amazing card against Turbo Discard, as that deck tends to rely on 2 CP forwards, whether you want to count Thaumaturge, Deep Ground Soldier, or Squall, the 2 CP Squall. Shadow Lord will be able to take them out, and if there's enough of them out there, he'll even be able to deal enough damage to take out maybe another forward as well. Let's say they have a Laguna to go along with the Squalls and the Thaumaturges. You would be able to deal damage based on them going to the break zone. Being a 4-drop AK with Brave is quite relevant when you're stabilizing, as we've learned from having, for example, Guy against smaller ice decks, as you're able to just leave it there as a blocker since he has Brave, but still attack with it turn after turn and chip away at your opponent to try to catch up. Okay. Next up, we've got Ingus. So if you look at that ability, the activated ability of being able to dole a total of 3 active Earth forwards or Earth backups, this is a mono Earth deck. So unless you want to count Chaos, Galdes, or Shadow Lord, This is very reminiscent of Yuri, who is actually quite popular at the moment. But this deck obviously cannot use Yuri, as you have dark characters as part of your deck, especially Galdez, and thus Yuri is not an option. But Ingus is a big part of this deck as well, because the combination of Ingus with an Acro, for example, is going to be really optimal for you to play Raban. We'll go over that card as we kind of go down the list in a little bit, and keep that ability in mind, that it can give plus 2000 power to a forward, because that can be quite relevant if you don't have Anacro in play and you want to play Raban. Right. Next up, we got Psycom Enforcer. Only one Psycom Enforcer, but if you face a Jasper, you definitely want it in your hand as soon as you can to take it out. And at 3-drop 7k, it's actually quite good. Okay. Next up, we got 3 Dialumas. You're playing Earth, and Dialuma is one of the best forwards out there right now. There's also some other ones in this list, and this deck is just also powerful. Dialuma also works really well with Pellinore and Hecaton and Yojimbo as well. The Hecaton Care used in this version is not the fight Hecaton Care. It's actually the backup destroying one. But Yojimbo can take that spot to force out fights between Dialuma and opposing forwards, and it's actually pretty interesting to be able to put it that way. Okay. Next up, we've got Noctis. Hopefully, you guys all got your Firebox promos with the full art foil. This card looks amazing, and it is amazing. I mean, 3.7k on curve with EX Burst, and if you have him in play at the time, or you flip him on EX Burst when you're as your 6 point of damage, you would be able to break an opposing forward that way. And against with this card, when they're trying to, let's say, party attack or something like that, then you can break down that party a little bit. When you take the damage, have Noctis trade against one of their opposing forwards that are part of the party. If Noctis can survive that fight, then even better. And if they have a 7,000 power forward that Noctis needs to take on, or maybe if you have Ingus and Anacro, a 9,000 power forward, you can go ahead and use some CP, discarding cards or using backups to prevent damage to Noctis while he goes ahead and takes out an opposing forward of the same power. Okay. Next up, we've got Raban. As I mentioned, Raban, Ingus, and Anacro. If you're able to get Raban to 10,000 power, then he enters the field, takes out an opposing 9,000 power forward, and stays on the field with while he's dealing 9,000 damage to himself. So even if you don't have Anacro, you'll be able to duel a combination of, let's say, active Ingus, active Raban, and either another Earth forward or an Earth backup. As Ingus states, that you can go ahead and duel 3 active forwards or backups of the Earth element in order to give 1 forward plus 2,000 power. So Raban would have his ability go on the stack, then you would put the Ingus ability on top of it. It would resolve first, and Raban will be 10,000 power and survive his own damage. Alright, you're playing Earth, and here's one of the best cards in the game. All those abilities, if you're not familiar with them by now, then I would definitely suggest you looking over the card, as all those abilities are quite relevant. The protection from EX Burst is something that's just also powerful at the moment. A lot of people rely on that, and just being able to just put Brave and plus 2,000 power is quite good as well. Playing against with this card, for example, a first turn wall, if you can survive with it, and you can accumulate cards for a couple turns in your hand by not playing things out, and they don't have a Jesper, then all of a sudden Thaumaturges turn out to be just 1,000 power forwards attacking into you, and during your turn, during the beginning of your attack phase, you could go ahead and deal 3,000 damage to a dull forward, and that should be able to take out one of those 1,000 power Thaumaturges. Okay. Next up, we got Gibran. So Galdez has more than one purpose in this deck. So something that people were looking into back in Opus 3, and I played a similar deck at the time too, where people played the Light Zidane, the starter one, so that they could play Ultima for a discount instead of paying, I think it was like 7 CP, it'd be 5 CP, I think, to I think it was to take out all forwards that were not light or dark. And in this case, though, people have been waiting for a while for a low-costed uh, dark forward, and Galdez is definitely fits the bill. 3 cost, AK. It's amazing, and it also gives you a discount for Zodiark, who works really well with Gibran, and Gibran works really well with your Noctis, as well as you don't mind taking damage at that point, getting up to 5 or 6 damage, so that your Gibran can come in cheaper, and your Noctis can actually come in and break opposing forwards. Gibran can keep you safe, where if your opponent does any kind of weird shenanigans where they're trying to do things to you and kind of sneaking a couple points of damage, you could go ahead and put Gibran into the break zone so that you could nullify the next damage dealt to you to 0. So that also works with Zodiark. There's been a ruling on that a while back where Zodiark counts as dealing multiple points of damage to you, but it counts as 1 instance of damage. So sacrificing Gibran to prevent the Zodiark damage will actually prevent all of it from being dealt to you. So you'll be able to do a one-sided board wipe. We'll go over it in a little bit when I go over the summons. Okay, and Asmodai making a hit, making a showing here. I mean, it definitely was a thing when people were playing at the pre-release. If you were able to get enough Earth cards as well as Earth backups, Asmodai was pretty darn awesome, being able to enter the field and take out a forward of any cost as long as it's dull is quite a big deal. So if your opponent attacks with, let's say, a Nidhogg and you have Asmodai, you could go ahead and take out that Nidhogg. Normally, it's quite difficult to take out 9,000 power forward, especially when it's 9 cost. So a lot of cards have a restriction as to the targets that they can take out, such as let's say 4 CP Odin only being able to take out forwards of cost 4 CP or less, or in this deck, Masked Woman. On the other hand, Asmodai doesn't really care what the cost is, whether it's 1 or it's 9. It will be able to take care of all of them as long as they're dull. So being able to take out an opposing forward and put in and play an 8,000 power forward can be quite good. Alright, so next up we're going to go over some of the summons, starting off with Hecatoncheir. So in the current meta, one of the strong decks would be Fusoya, Light Fusoya, and Hecatoncheir can actually prevent it from going online, so that's really good. Other cards that you might run into, for example, would be the plus 1,000 power backups, such as an Acro, Waka, or even the 4 CP one, Maria. Being able to play Hecatoncheir to give yourself a little bit of a power advantage for all your forwards is quite good, on top of the fact that you're playing Ingus. So Hecatoncheir, definitely there, definitely great. And you could even take out a Devout just in case you're playing against one of those mid-range ice decks. Okay. Your Jimbo, a great EX on top of being able to work well in combination with things like Daaluma, for example. It's a fight card, so the opposing forward will deal damage to Daaluma and will trigger Daaluma damage on top of that. So a combination of Daaluma and other cards, or even if you throw your Galdez at a 9,000 power forward, then your Jimbo would be able to take that out, and after that, trigger the Galdez's ability when he is put it from the field into the break zone. So this card is great, and if you hit off EX Burst, then you'll probably be able to take out an opposing forward as long as you have at least one forward on the field. Okay. And last but not least for the summons, we got Zodiark. So with Galdez being 3 cost, this becomes a 4 CP dark summon that breaks all opposing forwards. That's a big deal. That's a one-sided board wipe. So when you think about things like Cagnaso and everything, this one takes a little bit less setup, and if they're able to stall you out or have things like, for example, a Camelot that has that's been called for Earth, then you won't be able to target Camelot with almost anything in your deck. Sure, you can target it with Shadow Lord and Galdez, but Zodiark would be able to take care of those pesky Camelots that might be up and about, or if your opponent is able to build out a wall of forwards to slow you down long enough, then Zodiark will definitely put you over the top. Okay. Next up, we're going to go over some of the backups. So starting off with Evoker. Evoker is a good first turn play, or as you can kind of consider it a 2 CP backup. You just pitch a card and you're able to play it. But it's also a great card that you're able to bridge into. So if first turn you play even cost backup, like let's say a Pellinore, then with Evoker you'll be able to play a second turn forward. And there's definitely times when this deck might go the distance. And the reason why I say that is it does run the minor engine, and it can kind of stall out against some other opponents. And you don't want to deck out. That's something you have to worry about. And this deck doesn't draw too many cards, but you never know when things slow down long enough, and you have to worry about how many cards are left in your deck. And Evoker, instead of being one of those backups that's 3 CP and able to search for something, is just going to be able to curve you out during those crucial early turns and help you move your game state forward. Okay, just be very careful when you play this deck, though. Some of the most of the backups that you have in this deck do not break. I mean, there's a Minor and Manphilia that can break, but most of the other ones stay on the field. So when you play your backups, keep in mind to keep a couple of spots for the important ones, such as like Acro, Pellinore, and Minor. You want to have a spot enough space to have at least one Minor on the field, whether it's in the mid game or the end game, so that you can recur all your forwards, especially the toolbox one that will give you that edge against an opponent. Okay. Next up, we've got Pellinore, as I mentioned. Pellinore, obviously, you're not going to use the first ability where it gives Brandaless Brave, because you don't play Brandaless, but being able to deal 1000 power damage to all forwards, including your Daluma, can be a big deal. If your opponent targets Daluma with any kind of effect, then you can go ahead and trigger a Pellinore, and all of a sudden you're able to take out to deal 4000 damage twice, which should be able to take out an 8000 power forward, and that can be quite relevant. Or finishing off an opposing forward. Let's say your Galdess goes in against a 9000 power forward. Use Pellinore to deal 1000 damage to all forwards, and so that could trade out, and Galdess will still have its effect from being put from the field to the break zone. All right, next up we've got Acro. You're playing Mono Earth. You should be playing Acro. One Masked Woman, just in case somebody's playing a little bit aggressive on you. It's a great card. A lot of decks rely on forwards of cost 4 or less, and Masked Woman being able to be a form of removal, and also pushing you forward with how many backups you have on your backup line can be pretty relevant. Okay, Epitaph, because you're playing a Galdess deck, and sometimes you just really want that copy of Galdess to get the ball rolling, or you might need it to just play out that Zodiac for slightly cheaper. Next up, we have Kolka. So part of that cycle of 4 CP backups that can search out forward of that specific element. It started off with Merle Web for water, as well as Isel for ice, and now we have Kolka for earth. So as I mentioned, this deck is a bit of a toolbox. There's really powerful forwards in it, but a couple of them, such as like Cyclone Enforcer, you want at a specific time. Or as you get to 5 points of damage, you might want to go ahead and search out a Gibran, and if you have 6 points of damage, maybe you want that Noctis, and Kolka is going to be able to fix that for you. Next up, we've got 3 minors. Why? Because you want to start that chain of 2 minors. So the way it goes is that somehow you have you play a minor onto the field, and you go ahead and break it in order to put a forward from your break zone to your hand, and after that you play another minor, getting that first minor back from the break zone to your hand. You just keep going. You just keep getting forward after forward after forward. You just flood the board with all the forwards you want. Bring back certain ones that are part of your toolbox, such as Cyclone Enforcer. If you're playing against a deck that likes to rely on monsters, go ahead and play your Cyclone Enforcer. Having trade against somebody else, another forward, goes to the break zone, and after that you play a minor, you play the minor ability, getting it back, play another minor, get your minor back, and just keep going and going and going. This deck can definitely go the distance with the combination of Ingus and Acro, your fours are quite large. And with, I mean, Da, Luma, Rabon, and like, there's just so many things in this deck. It's really a control style deck that can handle early aggression and really go for the late game as well. Okay. Next up, we've got Manphilia. Just in case, well, there's another way to do recursion from your break zone. Keep in mind that Manphilia is able to get you characters, meaning backups or forwards. So if for some reason you lost all your miners early on and you have 2 backup spots available still, Manphilia can definitely do the trick. Or if your opponent likes to rely on chaos and putting multiple dark forwards, so let's say a mirror match or something like that, or even if they play Fusoya, the ability of Manphilia will also be able to take out a light or dark character, so that also includes backups. Next up, Shantoto. You're playing Earth, and every once in a while Shantoto can just bring you right back into the game if your opponent is a little too aggressive. And last but not least, we got Chaos, just in case you run into that Galdes and Shadow Lord and you want both of them on the field at the same time. You'll be able to do so with Chaos, since it allows you to control 2 or more dark characters on the field at the same time. So hopefully you like this deck. Congratulations to Chogyoji for getting to the finals of the tournament. 67-player tournament is definitely no joke. Congratulations. Love the deck. There's definitely some 7 influence there, and I'm happy to see cards such as like Asmodai and Galdes make a showing. So if you like what we do and or you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down below. Otherwise, I'd like to remind you that we're thankful for our sponsor, Magic Tech Games, that recently put up a buy list, and I think they've updated a couple times since then. They're providing some giveaways for when we hit 800 subscribers, and normally every 100 subscribers that we get, we do another drawing. So anybody that's a subscriber at the time will be entered in any future drawings as well. And currently, some of the things that we're giving away will reach 800 subscribers. They'll get to pick between one of the following items from what was it? Iconic Masters Horizon Canopy, Dominaria Mox Amber, Character Sleeves, Cactuar 60 pack, Lightning Plushie, the Knight of Acro, and last but not least, Shiva deck box from Toronto for the Toronto Crystal Cup, signed by Tarugai Kageyama, one of the producers of the game. So also, as we're getting closer to 800 subscribers, we're going to have to look for more things to give out. I mean, sure, we already have great things to give out, but if you have any suggestions about what you'd like to see us give away, feel free to put it down below. We'll take into consideration, obviously. If it's easier to ship, it's better. But I mean, obviously, as we get to either 800, 900, or even 1,000 subscribers, we're going to look at doing some pretty cool giveaways. But hey, we're definitely looking for inspiration, so go ahead and put some suggestions down there for us. Otherwise, hopefully you like what we do, you subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.